Hello and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm Vikas Nangia with CyberWatch, a program where you get to meet technocrats, thought leaders, and subject matter experts. Ladies and gentlemen, on the program today with our esteemed guests, we will talk about cyber risk and compliance. My two guests have flown in from different parts of the United States. My first guest has flown in from Tampa, Florida, Avani Desai. Avani is the CEO of Schellman Company, a leading national provider of compliance services. Schellman has over 300 employees and 700 clients, including numerous publicly traded and Fortune 500 companies. My second guest has flown in from Dallas, Texas, a very familiar face now on TV Asia. You've seen our previous episodes of CyberWatch. It's Lalit Ahluwalia, the CEO of Digital X-Force and I Trust X-Force. Lalit and Avani, thank you so very much for joining us on CyberWatch.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely delighted. Hope you're finding yourself comfortable over here in the cold weather in New Jersey, Avani. I hope Lalit has managed to do that because he's come here a few times. But how are you coping up with the cold weather?
Definitely a few days to head back, so I'm okay.
Well, enjoy the weather over here. But let me open up the conversation by getting the reaction from both of you on our topic today, cyber risk and compliance. What would you say?
Yeah, no, I think it's such a relevant topic today. You know, the consumer's getting a lot more mature than maybe 10 or 15 years ago. We care about our personal data. We care about the security. Data is, people think it's a commodity, but it should definitely be safeguarded. So a topic that's really relevant to people, organizations, and even governments.
Yeah. Lalit.
See, I think the way the risk and compliance the evolution of that has happened is a big time. It started with like back in the days when let the organizations, businesses do what they been asked to do, follow the rule sets.
Right.
To the point now, we talked about the digitization and how it impacts day-to-day life. The risk is prevalent in every aspect of our day-to-day life.
Right. You know, at the company level and at an individual level, many also feel if it is compliance, you're secure.
Correct.
Is that the fact?
It's not. I mean, there's a big difference between compliance and security. So compliance does not equal security. And I live in the compliance world. That's what I do for a living.
Right.
But compliance is frameworks, right? It is the foundation, it is the baseline, it's table stakes.
Right.
Right? But you know, compliance isn't going to be the reason a hacker doesn't come after your organization. So you have to understand, you have to have compliance. It builds trust with the consumer, builds trust with your clients. But security is going to be the one that makes sure that your data doesn't get taken, right? The other thing is compliance is a point in time. You don't have continuous compliance. We come in as the auditor, we come in once, maybe twice a year, and we look at your controls and we look at your infrastructure right then, right? But what happens a day later? What happens, 2 days, 3 weeks later?
Right.
Security is continuous and it has to happen all the time.
Correct. And since our topic today, we want to lay emphasis on risk and the compliance, Lalit, help me understand what are the different kinds of risks. So, we're talking about risk management and compliance management over here. So what are the different kinds of cyber risks that, help me identify them?
Yeah. So tying back to what we discussed in the previous episodes as well, right?
Yes.
When the risk first started, and especially with information system, the digital side of the house, it started with risk for financial loss or data loss. These are the big dimensions that really came to everybody's mind. Or something that is really like financial services fraud.
Right.
How you really make sure the fraud is not happening in your company. So you need to be compliant with certain regulations. That's how the regulations evolve.
Right.
Okay. Now, because the digitization really has happened, and I will take an example here with the audience that's watching this on your mobile, or they're watching some kind of laptops.
Right.
You were so into this program, and all of a sudden you lost the connectivity to the program.
Right.
Because your service got disrupted. Now, that's a risk to in some ways to you there. Or you were really doing online shopping. Or you were surfing on your social media. Everything in digital now today has a risk element because your data or what your function you're performing is also at risk. To the point where very soon you will see the risk definition going to the risk of life. We talked about the self-driving cars.
Correct.
What if those things get compromised? The risk really goes beyond or spans beyond now social reputation, data loss, financial, to the risk of life. Right. That's how the risk has evolved from when it started to like where we live today.
Yeah. I think Lalit's right. One thing that we've seen a huge change is everything is a technology product.
Right.
So you were talking about self-driving cars, right? 20 years ago, self-driving cars weren't considered a technology product. Today, we have connected refrigerators that will tell you, oh, you need milk because you've run out of milk, right? Now, your refrigerator is a connected device. So the level of risk today with the connected devices or Internet of Things that we have really increased and kind of opened up Pandora's box, I think, because everything is a connected device. Our watches, we have connected clothing, how we get to work, our cars and so forth. So the level of risk, I don't think people always consider these products to be technology products. So we have to change the way we start thinking about what data is getting ingested and what data is going out.
Wonderful. Lalit, I must tell you the feedback that I gather from the community is that when you speak on the program, it's not just from the company's perspective, but you also lay emphasis from the consumer's point of view. And that is very significant. That's where our audience gets connected with CyberWatch. Yeah. And you laid the emphasis and gave several case studies in the first 2 episodes. Here, when we talk about risks, what the consumers should be aware, can you expand a bit more on that?
Absolutely. So I'll give you now example that hit me like just a month and a half back when my dad tried to get the passport renewed for my mom. For him, it was a simple transaction. Somebody reached out, we can expedite that passport renewal because it's all digital. I'm not going to an office anymore.
Right.
मुझे मतलब तत्काल service India में होती है.
Correct.
The same thing is like expedited service.
Right.
For him, somebody reached out like, I'll get it done. And guess what? It's also cheaper.
Right.
Now, as an audience,
it's cheaper, you said.
Yes, it's cheaper as well. Now, for as an audience, as a consumer, what could be more impactful?
Yeah.
Not doubtful. This is the human element.
Correct.
Convenience.
Convenience comes with a lower price. Of course, I'm getting lured into it. There might be some doubt.
Correct.
But if somebody's legitly coming to you, no, we have done this, more likely chances are you'll do that. Great. I will sign up for this one. On top of that, he got asked to give or share his PIN number to the bank account.
My gosh.
So we can do the direct. And now, for the audience, you asked for the risk, right?
Correct.
He did not connect the dots. What could be the risk associated by giving away that information? For him, it's just a transaction or the amount.
Right.
Next day he wakes up, the bank account is empty.
Oh my goodness.
Now you consider it as a risk? I do.
Right.
Because this is the financial risk that really he took.
Right.
To save some money, now the money's lost, and now he's all stressed out.
Amazing. Let me take a quick short break over here. On the other side of the break, with Avani Desai, we'll talk about risk management, keeping the corporate companies in perspective, what kind of risks they have and they have to prepare for, and how they can safeguard themselves. We'll talk all about that. We'll be right back after these messages. Lalit and Avani, welcome to CyberWatch. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise and knowledge with our viewers. Avani, prior to the break, we were just talking about the functionality of corporate world when it comes to risks. How do they safeguard the risks? That one part, but more importantly, as Lalit was giving the example of his father of getting the passport done at a tatkal service in India. And now that's at an individual level, but at the corporate level, what kind of risks are there?
Sure. So
there are 2 questions. What kind of risks and how you safeguard them?
Great. So I would like to say there's a couple of types of risks. One is definitely the data risk. How are you making sure that your employees' data stays safeguarded? So a good example, I know Lalit talked about his father. We're starting to see a big increase in phishing and smishing. So phishing is an email comes to you, click on the link, and then unfortunately then your credentials get stolen.
Right.
There's an increase in smishing, and smishing is an SMS that comes to your phone that says, and it happens daily at my organization, where they said, Avani Desai, I'm sending a text message that says, I'm busy right now, can you call me?
Right.
And so what happens there is they're using social engineering. So they go onto my social media accounts, they see where I am, they're seeing where I'm speaking today, and they use all of that information to try to infiltrate my organization by saying, oh, Avani is at TV Asia today, she needs you to send a couple of things,
right.
And they believe it because they know I'm there.
Right.
So phishing and smishing, it is social engineering to really get the credentials of an organization. So passwords or where you're going to be at certain times. So that's a risk that we're seeing on the rise. The second risk is, companies are now doing things that they're really good at doing, right? Mm-hmm. So my organization, we work on cybersecurity assessments. We outsource and offshore other things, like payroll processing, right? Marketing maybe. Well, when you're outsourcing that information, you're really giving them your data, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you safeguard data when you're giving data to a third party, right? The risk of third party loss, the risk of third party breach. So you have to trust that they're doing the same thing that you would be doing with your data. How do you trust them, right? Third party assessments, you hire an organization like Schellman to be able to say, yes, your data is being protected, or you do it internally. You have the right people internally to do it. Those are the two biggest risks that we're seeing. Mitigating those risks are hard. Training, awareness, and looking at a way to test your controls and your security posture on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Lalit, I want to reach out to you. You deal with a large number of clientele all across the world, or essentially in North America, India, from companies to companies, what kind of risks you've seen? What has been your experience like?
See, I think Avani summarized really well. Like, it all starts with data first.
Right.
Because everything is, just like oil. We say it's a fuel to what you fuels everything.
Right.
Coal used to be there. Data is the fuel for the new economy, new digital. So data is a huge element.
Right.
Now think of for a second, I used to run this companies building my own infrastructure.
Right.
Today I rely on what? Cloud service providers.
Yes.
If you don't realize, I'm not going to use terms like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. Gmail. That's not your email system. You're not writing mails and letters on your notepad anymore.
Correct.
Gmail is what? It's a service provided by somebody else.
Correct.
What is preventing your data used by Gmail if they're not protecting to be leaked somewhere else? And you might think, oh, I'm just sending emails. If you today, and anyone watching this show, go back and look kind of sensitive data you already put in an email, you'll be amazed.
Sure.
Your whole life history in some form or fashion exists in those email systems.
Sure.
Now, what if those email systems are getting compromised? That's one element, right? Simple. It's a business to business thing, right? Now look, organizations, same way, are transacting with other organizations to provide services because no one organization does it all. Think of like a car company, a manufacturing company, doesn't matter which brand, Tesla, GM. They don't manufacture all the parts themselves. They get parts from where? Third-party suppliers and everyone, right? The same way the data or the processing goes to like different vendors. They're processing data on your behalf. They are doing transactions on your behalf. So that's another risk element. When they are doing it, are you protecting at the same level or not, right?
Right.
And really kind of spans. If you really look at the recent years now, there's so much of supply chain, third party, they're getting compromised, leading the compromise of the larger firms. That has happened. And that's considered like a huge risk. I don't need to kind of go and invade into the biggest thing. I do want to hit something which Avani talked about, phishing, smishing. Even though some technical terms, the people who have watched the movie Troy,
right?
How did Greek get into the Trojan big walls?
Right.
Okay, just to relay things. It was nothing but they put in a gift, we're gone. This is gift present, we leave. They basically feel lure you into taking that inside, invade into your indoors. That's exactly what phishing and smishing is trying to do. Lure you to get into your environments. And once you're there, I can invade as much as I want.
Interesting. When you were giving me the example of the movie, I was also recalling about data breach, the Uber story that came out, and it was out everywhere. A lot of data was compromised, and there were tremendous risks and compliance issues up over there. We're going to take a quick short break over here. On the other side of the break, I want you to explain me in the corporate world how this, maybe giving the reference of Uber, I don't know. I mean, you guys can, so that the viewers can connect, because that was such a newsy thing out everywhere. So we want to understand that from you both. And of course, in our last segment of the program, we'll also bring you the CyberWatch news flash as well. We'll be right back after these messages. Viewers, welcome back. Lalit and Avani, welcome back. Before we proceed any further, let's take a quick look at the CyberWatch news flash. Facebook Marketplace users are grappling with a surge in scams as deceptive tactics exploit trust, prompting sellers and buyers alike to fall prey to fraudulent activities. These scams range from non-existent listings, demanding prepaid debit cards, to phishing attempts and fraudulent payments. Despite Meta's efforts to curb the issue, scammers manipulate users into financial losses, challenging the platform's intended purpose. The scale of the problem is significant, with surveys indicating widespread encounters with scams on the platform and reports to the Better Business Bureau revealing the prevalence of fraudulent activities. Scammers follow consistent patterns, utilizing toolkits, scripts, and phishing links, often sold on the dark web or advertised on platforms like Telegram. The exploitation of long-standing Facebook accounts adds an additional layer of authenticity to these scams, making it challenging for users to differentiate between legitimate and fraudulent transactions. All right, so that was an update on our CyberWatch news flash. But prior to the break, as Lalit, I was talking about the Uber case, in terms of data breach and risk and compliance. That was such a newsy thing. Keeping that organization in perspective, what would you tell our viewers? We'll start with Lalit and reach out to Avani then.
Yeah. See, I would probably take it further than just Uber. It's not just related to Uber.
Right.
I think there are many examples. In fact, every day.
Right.
We just saw 23andMe, before that Clorox. Like every day there's some other organization in the news for the very same reasons.
Right.
I think Avani hit very nicely earlier, security and compliance are not the same things.
Correct.
If you look at like last 15 years or over 2 decades now, the organizations, especially the Fortune 500 companies that have been compromised, they will show you all kind of compliance metrics against any regulations. And still they got breached. That tells you like it was not that the compliance is the yardstick. It's about the security. Now when organizations, the example you asked for Uber, but like many others in the same, what happens is that organizations that struggle understanding the fundamental definitions and doing fundamentals right. And what do I mean by that? A lot of companies invest in different security measures. Are you truly like really seeing how they're really applying? Or are you really getting like blindsided by just saying the compliance, I just checked off my boxes,
right,
and my risk is covered? Have I done the due diligence against, when you said the risk, right? You asked like, hey, give us examples of risk. The companies need to start evaluating against what my business processes are risks when something like this happens, and what could trigger that to happen. When you start putting those lenses in play, then you start connecting the dots. Versus, मैं gym जाता हूँ, मैं healthy हूँ.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's not the definition.
Correct.
Of healthy.
Correct. Correct.
मैं gym जाता हूँ, लेकिन मैं ये exercise करता हूँ, मैं ये मतलब, those parameters have to come together,
right,
to say yes, you're doing something right. Just because I have a gym pass does not make you, it makes you compliant. Yes, I have it,
right,
but I have to do things and I have to measure against.
Absolutely.
कि मैंने कितना cardio किया, मैंने कितना मतलब abdomen या go exercise जो की हैं,
right,
combined makes you healthy.
Right.
Eating habits, sleeping habits, all that combined comes right. The same applies to digital risk as well. That's where the companies often fail the mission.
Lalit, you explained that very articulately, and building up on what Lalit mentioned, Avani, of course you can add on to what he said. I also want to understand from you that where commonly the companies fail, they're working on their technology, upgrading their skill set on routinely basis. But when it happens with so many companies, and it happens very frequently, where are the failure issues?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of things. One, you want to get to market as quickly as possible, right? You want to make sure you're to market before your competitors get to market. But what happens often is you're not making sure that there's security measures built in. So we call it security by design. You think it's after the fact, when something happens, right? That can't be the mindset. And I think that's a big mindset is we need to get to market before our competitors do. What's the quickest way to get there? Security slows things down. They do. It does, right? Making sure you have the right controls in place, making sure you've tested, making sure that the APIs or the connections between third party. That's a lot of work. So when companies start thinking about shifting left, maybe you've heard that, or security and privacy by design, it's going to slow things down. But at the end, it's going to make things better. The second thing is education. You have to tell everybody at your organization why you shouldn't click, what happens if you click on a link, why you shouldn't use your computer for confidential information. The person is the weakest link. You can have the best technology, you can have the best third-party providers, you can have the best security reports, but if that person clicks that link, you have your weakest person there. So I think those two things are, making sure that you consider security at the forefront of your product and service, and making sure that you're educating all of your employees on the importance of security.
Yeah. Speaking of security, Lalit, from the first episode where we discussed about user ID and password security, the feedbacks and the questions that we got at CyberWatch at tvasiausa.com, there were folks who have asked the questions such as how frequently should they be, changing their password. And there was another question I recall in our inbox was that should the password be a small password or a longer password makes you more secure? I guess you could answer that.
Because I think that's a great question, right? So your question about how long the password should be, in the day when we're dabbling with those AI, artificial intelligence, and all these GPTs, and soon to come quantum computing, it doesn't matter how long the password it is. It can be cracked in a matter of seconds or microseconds.
Wow.
What will come to protect you, as Avani was talking about secure by design, is called defense in depth. In this case, the number of factors you're introducing. The example I will give is in the old household days, when people would secure their houses, but they were keyed, but the keys are kept somewhere else.
Right.
Like you're keeping different layers or creating different layers so you cannot just go one place and hack it all.
Right.
Same thing goes with this thing. You keep a password, this is something you know. But more likely, as we know, all this hackers are going after all the passwords, and because we talked about 67% or more passwords are the same for your online services, one avenue that gets compromised, you're compromised.
And how frequently they should be changing their passwords?
So the frequency really depends on what the question you started with, the risk. If I have financial services, bank accounts, or social media, I better be changing more often because the risk is higher.
Right.
If this is a general public account, I really don't have a big risk, maybe I can live it once in 3 months or 6 months.
A lot of times people are confused that how many email accounts I should really be having. And that often, leads to confusion with the passwords and IDs and so much more. Avani, would you like to take that question?
Sure. But I agree with Lalit. If you have dual factor authentication, something something you have. You know your password, then you have a physical device like an authenticator. You might not ever have to change your password, right? Because it's so hard for someone to have what you have, right? Or your thumbprint. You have an email, or you have a password in your thumbprint. It's going to be very difficult.
Right.
But the number of emails that you have, I think it's based on what you want. I have one email where I put all my spam, so it doesn't come into my other email.
Right.
I have a private server where I pay for my Gmail, where I do all of my taxes, I do all of my financial stuff. And then I have a Gmail where, I talk to my friends and I talk to my family, right? That's my process of, secure, more secure, and the least secure. But it's really up to you. But know, whenever you use something free is not free because your data is worth something.
And because, if I may add something, that I would actually reverse the question to the audience too. When somebody comes and offers you a credit card,
right?
How many credit cards you want? I can tell you my wallet doesn't allow more than 3 or 2.
Right.
Now, everybody will offer like, hey, I can give you this credit card and everything. How many can you really work with, and how many you really need to know or have?
Right.
The same thing goes with then how many email accounts. The email accounts is about the online accounts itself, right? The challenge we run into is every day this new application, new service. Like look at kids at home. Now they go on Instagram and this application, and they will force in some ways the parents to get same account because you want to manage. You don't want to be seen as, oh, I'm the old generation parent. The same examples flow in other forms too. But the same way you have to draw a line, what is enough and what's really make me functional, because everything else is noise and you need to cut that out.
Right. I love the way you both have brought in the practical and the theoretical aspects in our cyber risk and compliance episode, but it gives me a feeling that we've just started. There's much more that we need to talk on this particular topic. I guess I'd request you both to join us for another episode. We'll keep it as a sequel, part 2 of cyber risk and compliance. Viewers, I would encourage you to participate in our program, CyberWatch. Send in your video questions, audio questions, emails. You can write into us at cyberwatch@tvasiausa.com. And remember, CyberWatch is powered by Digital X-Force and iTrust X-Force. If you want to reach out to Lalit Ahluwalia at these two companies, Lalit, what's the contact source?
Simple. Go to websites. You'll find all the information as easy as is. You can always ping us on LinkedIn and other social media accounts too. But you're always welcome. If we can help, we definitely will find some help for you.
Avani and Lalit, thank you so much for joining us. Remember, in our next episode, we'll continue with cyber risk and compliance. Until next time, this is Vikas Nangia signing off.